King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and the Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast.
With less than 2 minutes to play, Ferguson worked almost exclusively to Gant, moving to the Patriot 15. 4 seconds remain, plenty of time for kicker Carson Long to pad Buffalo's advantage.
And you just heard the name of our guest on the telephone line. I welcome to the program 1977 Buffalo Bills place kicker Carson Long. Carson, honor to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Carson. You are considered a legend at the University of Pittsburgh, where you attended and played. And I want to begin by asking what attracted you to the game of football and the position of kicker?
Well, I was aware of football at a young age in the early 60s when my parents were talking about Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi, Sonny Randall, and the New York Giants, and then the people in the Roosevelt Greer. So I was aware of it and had a football and didn't know what quite to do with it as a young kid. But in the first Super Bowl in 1967, I saw Don Chandler kicking an extra point. And I wasn't really watching the game, but all the adults were. And I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a kicker. And they said, yeah, right. You know, you're not going to do that. You want it to be an astronaut. You want it to be a milkman, a fireman, all that kind of stuff. But I got a hold of a football and just started to practice.
And I read something like during your high school years, you and a buddy would kick coal, dirt behind your high school building. Is that true?
Well, the behind the high school building was a pretty big cold dirt field. And on it, the old high school team used to practice there. And when I played then at high school, we practiced up on the stadium. But that was the practice field, and it had an old goalpost. So I only lived like 5 blocks away from there, so I would walk up with my footballs and stuff and kick against on that goalpost.
Right, and then in high school, you played under Coach Orovitz, known as the Golden General, who became a member of your county's Coaches Hall of Fame, I read. And you guys had a tight relationship, correct?
Well, yes, we did. It was Bob Rabbits, and he was a great coach, and he saw me practicing this thing I was doing, kicking, and he saw me doing it wrong. Now, he would watch me, and then when I noticed him there, he would walk away. So one day he came out and he showed me the steps, the proper steps, and it took him maybe 15 minutes to show me that. No, I had them down, and I'll never forget. I looked at him. I said, "Well, what do I do now?" And he said, "Practice." And I'll tell you what, it was like giving a dog a bone. You know, when he said that, I my last class in junior high and high school, I was get my chart ready to go out because I would go home, change, and get up to the field. And I'd stay up there for hours and do that. And then I got on a weight regimen and that. And it's just funny when you mention that, because Coach Oravitz found out how to do that at a Coach of the Year clinic. And he had
really?
he met George Allen in Washington, D.C. And he said to George Allen, he says, Coach, he said, I have found this kid who's looks like he could kick the football pretty good. And he says, please do it. So Coach Allen showed him the steps. And Coach Allen taught him that. And he said he learned it from Mr. Hallis. And Mr. Hallis learned it from what was his name? I can't, it's slipping my mind.
But anyway, I mean, you guys were very close. He was like a dad to you, right? He was like a father to you.
Yeah. But Jim Thorpe was the guy. he
Oh,
got it from.
yes.
So, and when I met George Allen, and he said, Carson, he says, sit down here. And he said, before we get talking, he said, I want to tell you, I knew your high school coach, Bobby Aravitz, and he was a great football man. But Coach Aravitz was very close with me. And my father and mother divorced when I was about 5. And I was really tight with my dad, and he left. So I was like kind of wandering. And when I got into football and that, it's funny because the men in my life, my father, Coach Aravitz, Coach Majors, Jim Ringo, and our kicking coach up there in Buffalo, Bruce Beatty, they were very tough disciplinarians. And I kind of liked that. You know, I was used to that, and I liked that the sting of combat. You know, years ago when you were in school, when I was there, you got the paddle if you didn't do the right thing, and it was a deterrent. But I liked that kind of discipline, and it was a challenge, you know. So.
Yeah, and Carson, you mentioned the word combat, and you know I've heard it put this way as far as being a kicker. It's kind of like being a sniper on the sideline, right? I mean, you can wait 4 days without the opportunity to play, and then all of a sudden the coach says, "Get out there," and you have a few seconds to pull that foot trigger. So, you know, it's referred to as like a sniper. You mentioned the word combat. Would you agree with that?
In a way, yeah. But I mean, what happens is you do it so many times that it becomes second nature. You get muscle memory, and I worked out a lot with weights and that, and that certainly helped my strength and accuracy, and then the practice. But yeah, you know, when you get out there, it's the key to me was the timing. You know, in high school, you had to get it off at 1.4. In college, it was 1.3. And in the NFL, it was almost like 1.25. And that was fast. And I was able to adjust each time I went up the ladder, where a lot of kickers weren't able to do that.
I mean, I've read some athletes say being a kicker is one of the hardest positions to ever play. I mean, you obviously performed exceptionally well in high school, which led to an NCAA Division I scholarship for you to the University of Pittsburgh. And at the University of Pittsburgh, you set numerous records. Talk about some of your memorable moments. You must have many during those years playing for the Panthers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I look back on it and I think of Jerry Kramer's comment that, you know, when he was at Green Bay, it was Camelot. Well, it was Camelot for me at Pittsburgh. I mean, we came in. When I was getting recruited, I told Coach Majors that, you know, I went to play on a team that could possibly win a national championship. And Pitt had been 1-10 the year before and hadn't had a winning season in years. And I told him that because we couldn't beat our rival here, Mount Carmel, when I was in high school. We went up to that pretty good, and then after that we lost, and then it was all over. But I wanted to play on a championship team. And when he was at my house, he said, if you come to Pittsburgh, I promise you we will win the national championship before you graduate. And I said, I'm in. Sign me up. So the next Tuesday, I signed the national letter to go to Pitt. And I went there, and when I got out there, I was surprised because, you know, when you're 1-10, you didn't think there were good players out. Pitt had a lot of good football players. I mean, before I got there, they had Dave Janicek, Mike Bellino, Dave Wanstead, Ray Olson, Rod Kirby, Gary Burley, Kelsey Daviston. I mean, these guys were good football players. And we just came in and we started to win. I mean, I think we were 6-5-1 the first year, 7-4 the next, 8-4 after that, and then the team was built by the time 1976 started, when we went up to camp in August. The team was built, and we were ready. And we talked about it before Coach Sherrill left for going out to Washington State. He had his national championship ring from Alabama, and he said, "You guys have an excellent chance of winning one of these next year in '76." And we did. That was the goal. And I was never too impressed with being on all-star teams. When I was in midget football, it would be like a Pop Warner thing. I made a fullback my first year in organized football, and then I made my ninth grade. I was like kicker, honorable mention kicker of the year, and then my junior and senior year, I got a lot of recognition. But I was never happy with that because to me, football was about winning. And I wasn't impressed with all-star teams and all that. But what I was really impressed with was being a champion. And I don't know if you remember, but in the 60s, they would show the Green Bay Packers coming out in the field.
Yep.
And they would say, the defending world champion Green Bay Packers. And that just, I had a chill every time I saw it.
You were part of that 76 national championship season, as you mentioned, and many would argue that team was one of the greatest college teams of all time.
I fully agree with you on that, and it's a great observation. To this very day, we're considered one of the great teams of all time. And in this one book I have, it's the rights of fall, some of the great teams of all time, and it goes through the history of football up to, I guess, in the early 2000s. But each decade, it's talked about the national champions, and in that book it said, there were only 3 teams in the 1970s that went through undefeated and were able to win the national championship, and Pitt was one. And they thought, and that author who wrote that said Pitt was the best team of the 70s. So that was quite a it made us all feel good. And I have the book, and of course to be part of one of the greatest teams of all time, that'll keep everything going.
We're talking with Carson Long of the 1977 Buffalo Bills. Now, Carson, that team, that 76 team, did it also have Tony Dorsett?
Yes, it did. Tony and I played on the Big 33 game that year in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And when I saw him, he was so small, and I was about 190. And when I thought he was like 140 pounds. He was really tiny. And I saw him running, and I knew why Pitt got him. He was fast. As a matter of fact, the first year we were up in camp, my freshman year, we lined up the kickoff team, and I kicked off, and they put Tony back there for some reason. And it was, it wasn't live tackling; it was full speed wrap, and he came through that coverage team, and I'll tell you, he took off. I chased him I picked him up about on the 50-yard line. I chased him maybe to the other 40, and I stopped. And Coach Sherrill said, "Why didn't you chase him?" I said, "Coach, I could chase him till next week, and I'm not going to get him." So,
he was great, wasn't he? Heisman Trophy winner. Heisman Trophy winner.
Oh, yeah. He was a terrific teammate, and when I used to see him after games, him and Billy Daniels, especially our quarterback, the first 2 years, we ran the veer offense from the I formation, and then we went to for 2 years we ran from the I, and then the second, the third, and fourth year we went from split back. And Billy Daniels, he was black and blue everywhere. These guys were getting killed, and Tony was getting hit pretty good because you could see he was black and blue in a lot of places. And when you'd see him in the locker room, they said, "Holy mackerel!" They really hit.
Now, you were check this out. I was looking at a Sports Illustrated issue. You were also featured in a 1971 issue of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, I was. I had that was my junior year in high school, and I had kicked a 51-yard field goal against Mahanoy area, and up to that point, I think I would made 9 field goals or 8 field goals out of 10 attempts or something. So they put me up for Faces in the Crowd in Sports Illustrated, and they sent this beautiful, like, loving cup to the school, and it was really nice, and my name is on it and all, and they took the pictures and everything, and the one picture is with Coach Ravitz is in the Hall of Fame there at the school, and it's on display. And then, of course, I took it home and I put it on the on the cupboard, and my mother used it for buttons for years, so that's where it was. So I have it now, and it's my mother passed away many years ago, but she put buttons in it, so she would always go there to get the buttons. But I put it in my cabinet now.
I mean, that's a big honor, being featured in Sports Illustrated back in the early 70s. Sports Illustrated even awarded you, it was an award of merit back in November of 71, I believe.
Yeah, and that was part of that. And it was really nice at the time. But at that point already, I think football season was over. And we had gone 6-5, and I had got a lot of recognition, was being recruited then by a lot of colleges, but what I really wanted to do though was win at every place I went, and we fell short there, and we fell short my senior year, and I was going practically insane trying to pick the right team, in college, because guys like Dale Sayers and Dick Butkus never saw a playoff game in their entire career. Dick Butkus.
Wow.
And Dale Sayers never saw it. And they were superb players. So I said, I can pick the right team. So with Coach Majors, and I thought it would be Penn State or Alabama. And oddly enough, they didn't come close. They didn't win it in those 4 years I was at Pitt. But we played the national championship, the eventual national champion in 1973. It was Notre Dame. 1974, Southern Cal and Oklahoma shared it, and in 75 we played Oklahoma, and they beat us out there in Norman. They were the national championship, and then of course in 76 we were.
I just want to go over these achievements of yours, Carlson, because I would definitely rank you as a Division I collegiate legend, no question about it. Just go over some of these stats. 1972, you set a national record, 19 field goals. You actually set a record for one of the longest kick field goals of all time at 54 yards. Received a scholarship to the NCAA Division I Pittsburgh Panthers. You were a 4-year starter. You set 18 school kicking records, 3 NCAA all-time kicking records for points scored, named first team All-East and second team UPI All-American. You were an All-American as a senior. You played for a national championship team your senior year. I mean, these are major honors.
Yeah, when I look back, it's like I said, it's nice, and a lot of those records now have been surpassed by people who got into Pitt much better than I ever was, and it's just that the teams that we set up from 1973 to 1976, the players are very close to this very day. I have lifelong friendships from there. For instance, I told you about Dave Janasak. He was a player in the 1972 team that was 1-10. And Dave, when I went out to get recruited, he was the guy who took me through, was my escort that weekend. And we have stayed very close friends since 1973. As a matter of fact, I spoke to him last weekend. And, we those four teams stayed very, very close. And that means a lot. And as far as my participation, and I was happy to be there. And I look back at it, especially the 76 season, and I feel that I contributed my share, but it was a small amount. Everybody their senior year had their best year. Everybody, the whole team. Dorsett had his best year. The quarterbacks had their best. I had my best year. The punter had his best year. Everybody had their best year. Everybody rose to the occasion. So everybody did their bit, and we did and finished what we set out to do when we went to Pitt to win the national championship.
Now, I have a few minutes left. I want to get this in. 1977, you were picked 302, 11th round by the LA Rams. Where were you at the time the news broke, your reaction knowing you were headed to the NFL?
Well, I'll tell you, the day before the draft, that was one of the roughest days of my life. I got a call from the Buffalo Bills, and they said, stay close to the phone. We're picking you in the 5th round. Well, the 5th round came the first day, then the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th. I mean, they went through all these numbers. And then the next day, I get a call from, I was chosen by the Rams, and one of their people called me and said I was chosen by the Rams. So then I went out there, I guess, in a week and saw everything, and it was nice, and I liked it, and I got to be friends with Joe Namath.
Wow, really?
We had a common friend. Jackie Sherrill was a teammate of his at Alabama, and I told him about that. So back then, when a quarterback was throwing the ball, he was in a red jersey, and he would throw the ball across, when they were warming up, to a receiver who would hand it to the other quarterback. You couldn't toss a ball to the quarterback. You had to hand it to him. And it was a big deal to be the catcher for the quarterback. So when Joe Namath was done getting taped and everything, I played split end and tight end my junior and senior year at North Schuylkill. I told him that. He said, Carson, come on, let's go. I was his catcher. Me, next to Joe Namath. I mean, I walked out of that locker room, my feet never even touched the ground.
I mean, you must have some unbelievable memories. But, I mean, 1977, you played 9 games with the Bills, made 7 out of 11 field goal attempts. Not bad.
No, it wasn't. And I really enjoyed it. I had done very well up there in the preseason out there, and I was let go. But they paid me to practice. The Bills paid me to practice, and so I kept in really good condition. I practiced hard, and then of course they called me. I went up and it was fine. I think the first kick I made up there was a 41-yard field goal against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and that 77 Buffalo Bills team, of course, had O.J. Simpson. I don't think he played much during that season. If I'm not mistaken, I think O.J. was injured in 77. What do you recall about O.J. the player?
He got hurt up in Seattle. We were up in Seattle, and he was injured up there. And the thing about when we were up there, they introduced the players. Well, they introduced the Seahawks first, and then they introduced the offensive unit for the Buffalo Bills, and O.J. was the last. And the guy said on the loudspeaker, and now from the University of Southern California, number 32, O.J. Simpson. And everybody in the kingdom stood up. Everybody stood and applauded this guy. And then you saw Juice going through, and he was a first-class guy. He was first class. Him and Namath were first class. Oh, first class all the way. I always liked O.J. and still do. He was a good man. And he would, at the end of the games, people would go in the tunnel to see him. He would sign everything for everybody. And that was home and away. I mean, he was a great man, and it was just a shame of everything that had happened to him. But he was something else, and he, we had to start practice by running 2 laps around the field, which is like a track in high school. So it was a 440. He sprinted that. He sprinted that every time I jogged it. He sprinted it.
No question. I mean, he was a phenom. There's no doubt about it. So after the 77 season, so what have you been up to? What happened after the 77 season? I have a minute left.
Yeah, they changed the coaching staff changed, and it was the Ram outfit that came in, and of course I was replaced. I had a very good preseason up there. I made 4 out of 5 field goals and got released. And then in '79, I was with the Baltimore Colts, and I made 4 out of 4 down there and got cut. And then my last stint was with the New York Jets, and I think I made 3 out of 4 or something. It was, and then when I got cut there, I felt that it was over. I was about 25 or about 25 years old, 26 years old, and I thought, well, this, I gave it my best shot there, and it was time now to do something else. And I got into coaching and that and teaching, and I work now with disabled children, and when I look back now, I think that's what I was meant to do.
Well, Carson, listen, it was really an honor, always an honor to speak with a professional athlete. You achieved what only millions can only dream of. So thanks for being on the program, Carson.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. That was Carson Long of the 1977 Buffalo Bills. Until next week, happy collecting to all.